Now, in terms of coastal development, a lot of news have come, and recently, one news which made a lot of headlines that was in Ernakulam or Kochi, Maradu municipality area, where the buildings were asked to demolish by the Supreme Court. And I'll just show you the picture there. This is the backwater of Kerala, and you have this Maradu, this municipality area they're building there. They are just on the coastal park, and they were demolished based on the Supreme Court order. So the three buildings they were asked to demolish, and Kochi is a very developed area, and there was a violation of CRZ rules, Coastal Regulation Zone, notification. Now, I just want to bring about that. Coastal development and regulation of economic activities in coastal areas has been done by the CRZ notification, and earlier we had 2011 notification under the Environment Protection Act 1986. Now, this government, after Salesh Nayak committee report and the recommendation, government has amended the CRZ notification rules of 2011, and the new rules has been now brought in the 2019 there. Now let's see the differences of 2011 and 2018. I'll do the comparison there. But just briefly, just you can see this slide. What you can find in this slide is that 7,500 kilometer long coastline India has got, and 5,500 kilometer runs on the mainland, and 2,000 kilometer runs on the islands. That's the Andaman Nicobar Islands and the Lakshadweep there. And if you can see there, the in terms of the economic development and in terms of fisheries, the through 3.92 million tons, there's annual potential yield of fish comes from the coastal areas. At the same time, nowadays, you know that what is happening because of the uncontrolled development, because of fishing, then ports and harbors, sometimes sand mining in the coastal areas. Now it's causing a lot of worries in that case. Now, pollution, human development, economic activities are not only threatening the biodiversity of area but also human existence. So if we are not able to protect the coastline in a proper way, it it will become very vulnerable to sea level rise because of climate change impact. At the same time, the cyclonic event on the Bay of Bengal side and as well as in the Arabian side. So a lot of debate is going on how we should go ahead with the development in the coastal areas, at the same time protect the biodiversity and human existence there. So that's what CRJ notification becomes very important, because it's one way to control the economic development in the coastal areas in the country. So now let's look at the CRJ 2011 and the 2018 notification. See, if you look at CRJ 2011 notification, CRJ basically divided into four zones: CRJ 1, 2, 3, 4, where the boundaries are demarcated. So if you take CRJ 1 as per 2011, most ecologically sensitive area, and except for defense strategy purpose, these areas have been marked for no development. But recently, Government of India wants to open up this area for ecotourism, like Goa, then part of the Mumbai or Karnataka, or even the part of Andhra Pradesh and all. So to some kind of development, like for example, toilet or changing room, some kind of which can be earlier it was a temporary measure, but now government want to go ahead with that under the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. So ecotourism activities such as mangrove walk, tree huts, nature trails, like identified stretches can be allowed by the government. That is what change has been brought in 2018. Now, if you see the 2011 one, CRJ 2 and 3, there's all changes which have been brought. So there is a boundary demarcation 500-meter, which is divided into four zones, and CRJ 2 and 3, where the state government can make some changes. Earlier, all this CRJ 1, 2, 3, 4, all were under the central government. State had no power. But in the 2018, there have been some kind of further changes in the CRJ zones. Like further subdivision has been happened between this CRJ 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, CRJ 1 has been divided into CRJ 1A and CRJ 1B. And CRJ 1B has been used for pollution abatement activity like sewage plants and all can be set up. And CRJ 3 has been become 3A and 3B. That's in terms of urban and the rural areas development part. Now further, CRJ notification 2011, right, shall apply was applied to the land between high tide line to 100 meters on the landward side of creeks, estuaries, rivers. But the 2018 rules apply to land area between high tide line to 50 meters. That means earlier it was 100 meters, now it has been made to 50 meters, right? That another change has been made. And as I've said, 2011 there was no power to the state government and no discussion state government can take is all by the central government. But in the 2018 notification, 50-meter limit after approval of the state has been allowed. Now, more details about this CRJ 2018. As per CRJ 2011 notification, CRJ 2 urban areas, floor area ratio has been frozen as per 1991 Development Control Regulation DCR level, whereas in the CRJ 2018 notification, it has been decided to defreeze the same and allow the floor area this ratio for construction projects like ecotourism and all I have mentioned. CRJ 3 has been divided into two separate categories. CRJ 3A, which are areas with a population density of 2161 per square kilometer as per 2011 census. Such areas shall be declared as no development zone. Nothing can be constructed there. Up to 50-meter from the high tide line. Earlier in the 2011, it was up to 200 meters from the high tide line, but now it has been made it to 50 meters from high tide line. At the same time, the population density, right, as per 2011 census, should be 2161 square per square kilometer, right? Now CRJ 3B, right, in the CRJ 3 only, CRJ 3B, areas with population density of below 2161 per square kilometer, where mostly rural areas, where population density is not very high, is a sparsely populated area. So where the population density is below 2161 per square kilometer, as per the 2011 census, will continue to have no development activities or no development zone up to 200 meter from the high tide line. So I can tell you that as per the 2018 CRJ notification, CRJ 3 has been divided into 3 and 3B. 3A are those areas where population density is more than 2161 per square kilometer and no development zone is up to 50 meter from high tide line. Whereas CRJ 3B, which has a population less than 2161 per square kilometer, will have no development zone up to 200 meters. Right. Third point, I have already mentioned that infrastructure development for promotion of tourism can be allowed by the state government. So in that case, toilet or change room, drinking water facilities all can come there, right? In the no development zone of CRJ 3 areas possible. So there is what I said, however, minimum distance of 10 meters from high tide line should be maintained. So minimum distance from high tide line 10 meters, and after that, all this kind of ecotourism based infrastructure can be developed. Now, next point is that the procedure for CRZ clearances has been now streamlined and only projects located in CRZ 1, which is ecologically sensitive areas, and CRZ 4, that is the area covered between low tide line and 12 nautical miles seaward, shall be dealt for CRZ clearance by the central government, that is the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. The powers for clearance of project for CRJ 2 and CRJ 3 will lie with the state government. I repeat. Now, as per the new rules, any project for clearance in CRZ 1 and CRZ 4 will be by the central government, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, whereas state government can permit or allow projects under the CRZ second and third, CRZ 2 and 3. Now, next point is that for islands which are close to the mainland coast and for all backwater islands, no development zone of 20 meter has been stipulated. Like here, the Kerala case comes into that. That because in Kerala backwaters and is just attached to the Arabian Sea, so up to 20 meter, the no development zone has to be there. Maradu municipality case, what happened? That was based on the earlier part of, so there was a violation of that. So that's what Supreme Court didn't allow that. Now the specific guidelines for the conservation management of ecological sensitive areas have been done, like wherever the mangroves are there, it will declared as a kind of sensitive areas where the conservation management will be done there. Now, in order to address the pollution control and abatement in coastal areas, now pollution treatment facilities will be set up in the CRZ 1B, right, with necessary safeguard, and a defense and strategic project like Navy or Coast Guard will be given permission or allowed, right, as per the necessary requirements by the central government. All right. So these are the silent pages, and I believe that this is a very important topic. What you can see on the slide, and UPSC can ask question on that. So you have to be thorough with all these points, right? So moving onward, another important topic for the examination, that is a new state of forest report by the Forest Survey of India, Dehradun, which released last year 2019. See, remember that in UPSC exam, whenever this report comes, actually this report is brought every 2 years. So before 2019, the report came in 2017, and it has a data of the trees and the forest cover up to 2017. Now this new report, 2019 forest report, has data of tree and forest cover up to 2017. Now the next one will come in future in 2021, which will contain data up to 2019. So it is a very important exercise which is done there. Now the central government has a target to have one third of geographical area covered with trees and forests. So we have a target, national target of 33%. Now, before I go to all the data and the information on this report, I just want to make you aware that whenever this kind of report comes, definitely there is one question in the pre-exam. So you could expect a question in the coming exam based on the data of the report. And sometimes UPSC asks very direct question. The name of the states will be given, and you will be asked ascending order, descending order of the forest and tree cover. Second type of question is that in terms of mapping, it may ask you that the line which passed through a state which has the highest forest cover, and which is the their state in the north is something. So to remember Indian map. So whenever such report comes, so it's bound that question from geographical point of view, that is a tree classification or forest classification, or maybe directly from the report based on the data can be asked. So what I would like to ask each one of you, that just before the prelims exam, go through the data, right, and just look into India's map and your geography, what you have covered, types of forest and trees, and try to keep that in mind. So you will be able to solve the question. Now let's look into the report, what this report has come out with that. So we'll see the report part. The first is that total forest cover in India, as per the 2019 report, has been estimated to be 80.73 million hectares, which is based on the percentage of geographical area, 24.56%. Right, and top three states showing increase, where there has been increase in forest area, that's the Karnataka, then Andhra Pradesh and Kerala. And area wise, if you look at largest forest cover in the country, see what is the first data, where there has been increase in the forest cover as compared to last report. So Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala comes, right? Number is not very important. UPSC is not going to ask you the 1025 square kilometer or any kind of 990 square kilometer. You should know the ranking part. But if you look at total geographical area of the state, area wise, if you look at largest forest cover in the country, then the Madhya Pradesh is the rank one. MP first rank, second comes Arunachal Pradesh, third comes Chhattisgarh, fourth comes Odisha, fifth comes Maharashtra. You have to only remember the facts. Yeah, you have to remember the facts. So if you look at the type of classification as per the forest report, so it is classified forest into the following type: very dense forest, moderately dense forest, open forest. Then you have a tree cover, then scrub, and then non-forest. So if you look at the percentage wise, and which has highlighted, total forest cover has been 21.67%. And if we include total forest and tree cover, which is outside the forest region, is 24.56%. Right? It has been rounded off there. Now, Greening India, we have a Green India Mission program under the National Action Plan on Climate Change, where we have kept a 33% target. So, if you look at in that case, by 2030, India wants to have one third of the land covered with trees and forest cover. So that will be like 24.5% is now the Madhya Pradesh in terms of geographical area. Then I mentioned Odisha, Chhattisgarh, Maharashtra comes into the Arunachal Pradesh is the second after Madhya Pradesh. And if you see the increase in the forest cover over the last like 2017 report, then the southern state like Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana has shown the rise in the forest cover, right? And those states where it has noted the decline in the forest as compared to the last one, that is Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, and Mizoram. They have a decrease in the forest as compared to the previous the report. So 21.4% of forest cover is extremely, fire prone areas there, and 9.4% moderately dense, 9.3% open forest, 3% very dense forest, 1.4% scrub forest. So 76.9% are still non-forest cover. So there are a lot of tasks for the governments, center state government to increase the forest cover. Now further, again the data are top and bottom states in terms of forest cover increase. So Karnataka has shown increase of 1025 square kilometer. Andhra Pradesh second increase in forest cover 990 square kilometer. Kerala third 823 square kilometer. Jammu Kashmir now is a union territory 371 square kilometer. Himachal has 334 square kilometer. Those states which where there has been decline, there has been decrease in the forest cover. The Manipur has recorded decline of forest by 499 square kilometer. Arunachal Pradesh has seen the decline of forest by 276 square kilometers, and Mizoram has seen the decline by 180 square kilometer. So this is part of that. Further, forest showing increase that I've already mentioned. Karnataka has shown 2.73%. Kerala has gone shown 4.05%. Andhra Pradesh has shown 3.52%. Right, that is a in terms of percentage wise. So forest cover as percentage of the state area. If you take the total area of the state and the total area occupied by forest in that particular state, then now this is the data. I'll again explain. If we take the total geographical area of the state and in the same state the area occupied by the forest and take a percentage of that. So based on that, Mizoram has got 88.93%. Then Lakshadweep Union Territory 84.56%. Andaman Nicobar Island 81.84%. Arunachal Pradesh 80.3%, and Nagaland 78.21%. Right. And if you compare as a percentage of India's forest, let's say state area with the forest, how much forest area is in that state, and then forest area in the whole country. I can repeat. If we take the state and the state-wide the forest area, geographical area, and then you divide from the total forest area geographically covered all over the country, national level. In that case, Madhya Pradesh has the highest. That's 11.04%, followed by Arunachal Pradesh 9.58%, Chhattisgarh 7.92%, Maharashtra 7.22%, and Odisha 7.18%. All these names of the states and the ranking, you have to remember it. So the best strategy is that just before the pre-exam, you revise it so that you are able to get to solve the question which are direct and factual. And what type of question will be there? Ascending order, descending order, right? That kind of question will be asked in the examination. So top six, if you look at Lakshadweep, Mizoram, Andaman Nicobar, Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, and Manipur. Bottom six, Haryana, Punjab, Rajasthan, UP, Bihar, and Gujarat. Now this is the tree plus forest cover together. What you see the graph here. If we take total tree plus forest cover, that in forest cover plus tree outside forest as a percentage of geographical area, then you get this kind of ranking, like top six and bottom six. All right. Further highlights of 2019: bamboo bearing areas increased by 0.32 million hectare. Total carbon stock of the country's forest has been now estimated as 7,124 million tons, and there is an annual increase in the carbon stock or carbon capture in the forest of India is 21.3 million tons, which is equivalent to 78.2 million tons carbon dioxide equivalent. And if you look at mangrove cover, mangrove forest in India, the total mangrove cover in the country is 4,975 square kilometer. And among the mangroves, top three states are Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Odisha. State-wise, it comes into that. Right. So these are the highlights of the forest report. Now coming to CAMPA, Compensatory Afforestation Fund Act 2016, and the formation of Central CAMPA, National CAMPA, and the State CAMPA. So it was established as a National Compensatory Afforestation Fund under the Public Accounts of India and State Compensatory Afforestation Fund under Public Accounts of State. Now these funds will receive payment from compensatory afforestation and the net present value of forest. Now I'll explain what is exactly the meaning of it. See, under the Forest Conservation Act 1980, any project developer which convert a forest land into mining or any development project. So whatever the loss of trees happen in that forest area, that has to be compensated by the project developer. Let's say, for example, in a particular plot of land, because of the mining, 100 trees were cut or felled. So each tree will have a net present value based on the market price. So that will be calculated, and the project developer, here in this case mining company, has to pay that money to the central government. So that money was getting accumulated with the central government as per the law, the Act, Forest Conservation Act. It says that this money from the central government should be given to state government, which can use the fund in terms of afforestation into those areas where the forest is not there. But for a long time, the money kept on accumulating, and states were demanding the money. So matter went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court asked the central government to set up mechanism. That's why in 2016, Indian Parliament enacted this law called Compensatory Afforestation Act, and under this act, we have set up now Central Campa and the State Campa. So Central Campa manages the entire fund which is accumulated there, and that goes to State Campa, and State Campa use this fund for forestry, wildlife, and allied activities in the state level, right? So that is where this law comes into that. Now, Central Campa will keep 10% of the fund, and 90% will be given to the State Campa. And these funds are non-lapsable. That means the interest bearing by the rate decided by central government on a yearly basis will be there. And Act provides statutory status for two ad hoc institutions, namely CAMPA, that's the outside National CAMPA, and for managementization of the Compulsory Afforestation Fund, and the State CAMPA for the state level Compulsory Afforestation Fund. So this provide for constitutional multidisciplinary monitoring group to monitor activities undertaken from these funds, and also Act provide for annual audit of the accounts by the CAG, Comptroller Auditor General of India. right? So there's e-green watch. It is a kind of portal or a website developed by the Ministry of Environment, Forest, Climate Change in terms of monitoring the various afforestation project and the work being carried out by using the Campa funds. Okay, how much money has been put into use in terms of afforestation in the state level. So there is a e-green watch monitoring purpose of that. Now coming forward, I just want to end this biodiversity topic